Welcome to Biologica. I'm Dr. Susan, a veterinarian and a marine educator from Maine. On this show, we'll be exploring the many ways that animals and humans interact and that society and nature intersect. Please visit my Patreon or my Podbean page to support the show or to suggest future episodes. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the episode today. Thanks for listening.
Dreams are nothing more than wishes, and a wish is just a dream you wish to come true. If only I could have a puppy, I'd call myself so very lucky, just to have some company, to share a cup of tea with me. I'd take my puppy everywhere. La 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 la, I wouldn't care. But we would stay away from crowds. Besides that said, no dogs allowed. Oh, I know we'd never bite me.
Welcome to today's episode of Biologica about raising healthy and happy puppies for years to come. We'll be talking with Amber Zawrotny, a certified professional dog trainer and canine good citizen evaluator and the behavior and training manager at Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland. And we'll have a special lens on this episode where we talk about common misconceptions and best practices for raising puppies with an eye toward prevention of common problems in adult dogs. We'll also get to go to a puppy socializing event with our puppy Pippin, and we'll talk to Kyle, my husband, about raising Pippin the puppy and some fun highlights and some difficult parts of that. We'll also check out the literature and a poem. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Without further ado, let's go to Pippin's socializing class together. Our new little Boston puppy and I are on our way to Puppy Power Hour at Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland. The behavior team puts on classes there, and this is the youngest class, and it's all about socializing. So he's going to have an opportunity to play with other tiny little puppies, maybe big puppies, little puppies, but all of them young puppies who are getting used to meeting other people and going out on errands and meeting other puppies. So it'll be an important way for him to get used to all kinds of things during his socializing window, which is a window of a few weeks when he's really little, where he understands what's normal in the world, what's okay. Now, he has a little complaint here. You might have just heard him whine, but honestly, he's on a lightly heated seat on a soft bed with his toy. So I don't know, buddy. I know you're kind of like wondering what's happening. Thank you for the kisses. Thank you. Thank you. You gonna kiss the phone? There you go. You got a kiss too. I don't know if you heard that. We're headed to puppy class. I'll let you know how it goes.
I love my dog as much as I love you. But you may think my dog will always come through. All he asks from me is the food to give him strength. All he ever needs is love, and that he knows he'll get. So I love my dog as much as I love you. But you may think my dog will always come through.
I'm here this morning with Amber Zawrotny, the manager or head of the behavior department at Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland. Welcome to the Biologic podcast, Amber.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I am really looking forward to talking. I'm actually lucky to be a colleague or coworker of Amber, who I've recently witnessed with my own puppy is also a dog magnet. As you know, Amber, I have my selfish reasons for doing this episode because I've been thinking a lot about puppies and puppy behavior
Yeah.
due to adopting Friendly from the Animal Refuge League.
Yeah.
And he's actually snoozing right here beside me. But I was thinking about how, a lot of things may have changed since I was growing up and watching my parents raise puppies, or even since I was in vet school. And so, thank you for talking with us about puppies and best practices and puppy socialization today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super important. And I think especially since I want to say around COVID, maybe, we've had a huge shift in how we raise dogs in general. So yeah, happy to share what I know.
I always hear about a window of time to sort of do some important things or introduce them to important things. What are your top recommendations for what to make sure you do or don't do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there is technically that critical socialization period of around 8 to 16 weeks, maybe 18 weeks, where we want to kind of cram in as many positive experiences for puppies as we can. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean that the socialization window ends at 16
Mm.
weeks. It just means that they're most impressionable at that age. So honestly, within those first couple of years of life, dogs are really, or puppies, I should say, are intaking all of that information and, processing it differently than maybe an adult dog would. I like to categorize the adolescence as well, 6 months to like 2 years,
Mhm.
as you still have a puppy. So making sure that we're, not just calling it good at that age, and we're really working throughout those couple of years.
That's
Um,
really helpful to know because I adopted Friendly when, official adoption, he's about 13 weeks, and I feel some time pressure to sort of figure things out or do certain things within those weeks. But it sounds like I can be expecting, you know, not say right at 16 or 18 weeks, we're done. We're gonna be involved in this for a couple years, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I typically see puppy owners go through, or puppy raisers, I should say,
Yeah.
is, we tend to like jam pack everything and then, yeah, right. So then it falls off. So there are certain things that we want to expose our puppies to, right?
Mhm.
So have you heard of the Sophia Yin checklist?
I've heard of Sophia Yin just through veterinary medicine
Yeah.
realm, but I haven't heard of the socializing or puppy related checklist.
Dr. Sophia Yin actually made a socialization checklist of all the things that we can expose our puppies to. And obviously, it's not everything, right? But
Mhm.
it goes through different portions of socialization. So when we think about socialization, we think about like they need to meet other dogs, they need to meet people, they need to meet kids, they need to meet cats, right?
Mm.
Um, but it's so much more than that.
Mhm.
It's busy areas, high stimulation areas, textures, um,
Mm.
sounds, grooming, handling. So her checklist kind of goes through that. And I know like you and I love data. So
Mhm.
there's a good way to like score how the puppy did and really reflect on if that puppy just had a positive experience, a negative experience, neutral
Mm.
experience, and
Mhm.
what we can do to make that more positive.
I love that idea of that checklist. I think about even like if I'm packing for a trip or something and trying not to forget the swimsuit or kind of thing. It sounds like really helpful for organizing. I know in vet school I saw a movie once of a full-size Great Dane that needed to get a hospital treatment done, and the hospital had shiny floors, and the Great Dane had literally never seen that and was refusing to go down the hallway because of the floors looking scary. So just
Yeah.
having like a checklist to kind of remember, okay, what are some of the things this animal might encounter later?
Yeah.
Um, it's
That
great.
actually, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because my senior husky now, I adopted her at 1 year old, and she was like afraid of her own reflection in our bathroom,
Mm.
like
Mm.
in the tiles.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so
Some like psychedelic experience, like
yeah,
you're like a dog
just brought them in a
underneath.
fun house. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll send you that checklist because I still swear by it. It is an older checklist, and I'm sure that there's probably a newer one somewhere, but it's been really, really beneficial for kind of a
Mm.
holistic approach and view of what we should be doing.
Oh,
Um,
great.
yeah. And another thing I just want to mention too is, so I keep saying like we want positive experiences with things.
Mhm.
We want to make sure we're not like overstimulating puppies. We now have a lot of people working from home. That brings a lot more flexibility than historically we've been able to.
Mm.
And we do find in the training world a lot of times we're so focused on socialization that we don't also recognize the importance of rest.
Mm.
Um, so that is a huge factor as well, just understanding that puppies sleep 20 to 22 hours a day.
Wow.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, well, when they're really, really young, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, as they age, I think the average like adolescent dog sleeps around 18 hours a day.
Mm.
Um,
Still a lot.
yeah, it's a lot. And so when we think about now we're at home with our puppy and, maybe when we want to cuddle them in between Zoom calls or,
Hmm.
we have a dynamic household and we're planning for one person to take the puppy out this time and that time. And
Hmm.
we can accidentally flood puppies as well. So we really want to make sure that we're integrating kind of rest time, nap time into a routine, and helping our puppies that'll turn into dogs understand the importance of self-regulating. I think we're seeing this in the shelter a lot, and I'm sure you've seen it too, working with me on behavior cases, is we see a lot of overstimulation and
Mm.
dogs who can't necessarily cope with downtime very well. So making sure we have those breaks and letting puppies sleep as much as they need to.
Puppies have a lot in common with children and people.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of this is sounding
absolutely.
familiar from how to have a healthy life as a human. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
We need a
what
lot more sleep than we need or than we think we need.
Yes. And for the listeners out there, just to have an image of our conversation, I have a little puppy sleeping right next to me while we talk. So if you hear some snoozy sounds in the background, that's what that is. But you mentioned there something that made me think of motivation, some of the issues later with overstimulation. What is sort of being prevented or tried to be prevented or helped with these socialization attempts and these checklists? What are the goals of them or the benefits of them
Yeah,
later?
yeah, absolutely. So we tend to see later on with under socialized dogs, we can see overstimulation, we can see fear aggression, we can see, kind of this catatonic way of walking about life. We're trying to create resilient dogs that
Hmm.
honestly, I view the socialization period as let's raise the puppy to handle the environment that we want them to be able to handle, not necessarily everyday life. I think that a lot of us, raise our puppy in the house. They do really, really well in the house. I've also seen like dogs who have a lot of free range in their area. So maybe they have like a huge backyard, maybe there's a stream or whatever in there, and that's their entire world, right? And then life happens, and then they end up in a shelter. And
Mm-hmm.
all of a
There's a
sudden, yeah,
unplanned event, basically, a
yeah,
medical issue or a move or something.
yeah, any change in life, we want them to be
Hmm.
prepared for. And that is hard to know what's going to happen. It's
Hmm.
important to give them those experiences so that we know that they can handle them. as humans, we're gravitating more towards being homebodies and things like that.
Mm,
You don't necessarily have to do it yourself either.
mhm, mm,
If you can hire a dog walker or dog enrichment specialist, that's kind of a newer thing in the dog training field is a lot of trainers are,
interesting.
yeah, getting certified in like enrichment and creating programs for getting dogs out and into the real world and meeting those needs while people are at work.
That's
So there's,
fascinating. And I think, like, it sounds like something you would have to invest in, but really having a puppy, there's a whole series of
yeah,
purchases and expenses. And if we think of maybe socializing them in a balanced way as one
Mhm.
of those things, with a lot of benefits later, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people see that throughout a dog's life. The average dog lives 10 to 15 years. I don't know a single person who's lived the exact same life for 10 to 15
Hmm.
years.
Yeah,
So there's a lot that we can prevent in the socialization process, for sure.
that's really interesting. So I'm kind of hearing we want to socialize them, we want to give them, rich and diverse experiences, and there's checklists to support that, but also maybe not go overboard where it's 24/7 stimulation, that we need to give them
Yeah.
downtime to recuperate and rest and process as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. I will always tell people because I know that we get very excited about like raising a puppy for like hiking and travel. And so we're taking puppies on hikes and carrying them and XYZ really, really early on and giving them
mhm,
like a lot of stimulation right out the gate. I just want to also say, like, they can build up that resilience at any
mm.
point in their life. I don't recommend like creating an athlete puppy right away because it's also hard on their
There's some
joints.
medical issues. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And I feel like in COVID, I saw that a lot, young dogs that were having joint issues from being ultra marathoners or
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So just knowing that they can always, like, if it's something physical, like hiking or something like that, they can
hmm
always build up the endurance over their life.
hmm.
Yeah.
What about kind of a slightly different talk on young dogs? How is it different from the way I grew up, maybe 20 to 40 years ago, in terms of punishment or corrections
Yeah.
versus some other approach? If they bite you or they pee on the floor, which they're gonna do those things from my experience this week so far. But how have things changed and what are best practices now? What are your top recommendations if the puppy does something that we don't like poops in
Yeah.
the middle of the living room floor or bites your finger with the little sharp teeth?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I tend to follow, I have a certification with the Council of Professional Dog Trainers who basically agree in a Lima approach. It's called least intrusive, minimally aversive. Really, really important to note that dog training is not a standardized, regulated, governed field in any way, shape, or form. So looking online, Googling like how to solve a problem with a puppy is going to give you 5 million different things, and some of them are going to be
Hmm.
outdated. We really recommend positive reinforcement for the behavior you want first and
Hmm.
foremost. That's your front
Hmm.
line. Things like peeing or pooping on the floor. If you don't catch it and you find it later, it didn't happen.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you watch them squat, you can, clap, try to interrupt them, bring them right
Hmm.
outside. We're not trying to scold it. We're trying to say like, oh, that's nope, that's not where we're going. And
Hmm.
kind of correct the issue by showing them instead. Um,
Hmm.
so you don't have to startle them. You don't have to scold them.
Hmm.
They don't necessarily know what they're doing wrong. So it's our job to teach them.
Hmm.
They're especially during socialization, they're, kind of wild animals. So it's our job to kind of help the domestication process
Right.
there.
Right,
Um,
that makes sense. And we don't want to create anxiety or stress or hiding
Yeah.
things. So I'm hearing kind of, gentle redirection if it's in the moment and tons of positive reinforcement for when they get it right.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with really any concept, right? So I just mentioned potty training, but that goes for like leash pulling or they nip your finger, right? We can redirect them to what we actually want them to play with.
Mm-hmm.
I am okay with if a puppy is nipping you too much, you can put them elsewhere or leave for like a minute or two and just let them settle
Mm-hmm.
in. But we
Mm-hmm.
really want to kind of encourage really rewarding interactions for them that are appropriate.
Is there anything we didn't talk about that you think is a common misconception or a really important thing to either do or avoid in the world of behavior and training?
Yeah, I have two things that I think that it's really important for people to know. One, especially in our current day and age, the importance of independence training or confinement
Mm,
training, right?
mm,
So we used to think that dogs are dead animals, they like their crate, XYZ. That's something that we actually have to teach them to find as a safe space, especially if they've never been in a crate. Then closing the crate and you walking out the door can be really distressing for puppies.
mm,
So making sure that we are introducing confinement while we're still in the room and then
hmm.
building on it to us leaving is huge. Especially
Okay.
like I'm gonna go back to COVID just because it tends to be like when we started seeing this be a challenge. But
Hmm.
we quite literally had entire classes on that because
Mm,
independence training is so huge. And I think we're
mm,
seeing it now with all of the separation related behavior that we're counseling on for 4 or 5 year old dogs as well.
right. A
Yeah.
few years later. That's really interesting. So
Yeah.
independence training, that's really interesting because it's not something I grew up with ever hearing about. It's kind of a new concept for me. So it sounds like I don't know if you have a link to that tells more about it. I'd love to share that, but it
Yeah.
sounds like working on really positive associations with the kennel or normalizing time alone and baby steps, that kind of approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can send you some links on that as well. It's not something that we really had to worry about that much, even when I like was growing up, because we used to give a lot more freedom than we can
Mm,
now.
mm-hmm,
Um, and they would kind of figure it out with natural consequences.
mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, very interesting stuff that we're kind of stressing with our current world with
Yeah.
that. And then the second thing that I have written down is managing a puppy. When we talk about like socialization and raising puppies, I think I kind of alluded to we tend to give a lot of freedom, and we tend to want to give puppies every experience and have them involved in every experience with us. That road is exhausting for
Mm,
humans and puppies, right?
mm-hmm.
So my rule, and this may be similar to 20 or 40 years ago, but my rule is if you can't directly manage the puppy, they have to
Mm-hmm.
be in a crate, a pen, somewhere safe that
Mm,
they're not getting into trouble and practicing bad habits.
got it. Okay.
And that goes far beyond the 16 weeks. I think that would be honestly like 8 to 12 months of your puppy's life is
Mm,
essentially management. I know that when we as trainers, we say like limit their freedom. um,
mm.
that sounds really mean, but what we're actually doing is trying to give them exposure without allowing them to create bad habits that we then have to course correct later on.
This is really interesting. It actually reminds me years ago, my dog who passed away a half year ago, he actually was the best dog ever, but at about I don't know, classic, right? At about 14 months, he started really testing boundaries, and
Mhm.
we were giving him like total freedom. And he is a big boy. He was 85 pounds, and he had access to the couch, he had free roam in the house, everything. And he was by the fireplace, and he started like growling at me if I tried to move him away from there.
Mhm.
And I was like, whoa, like what? And I had 3-year-olds in the house. I was like, wow, this is kind of scary. Like, what's happening here? And he was in dog training class and doing great in there, sit, stay, everything with the treats in the class. But in
Yeah.
the home, he was having these red flag behaviors. And we ended up having a trainer come to the house about 3 times. And she gave us advice that was a lot like what you're saying. Like we kind of shrunk his world a bit. Like he wasn't allowed on the couch anymore. We did positive reinforcement, but we introduced kennel training. We had long leads. We penned him when we would eat. We would sort of put baby gates up. It became a lot more controlled, even though we were still doing a lot of play and exercise. And I remember sort of crying at the time because this is embarrassing, but I had
Mhm.
grown up with dogs that just had free reign. But like you said, it was a different world. Maybe we were gone at school or work more, and who knows how it was different. But it was funny because I know it's probably not always this fast of a switch. We were lucky, but within like a month or two, it was like the switch went off. And I honestly feel like I saw his body language give this sigh of relief, like,
Yeah.
oh, good. 'Cause
Yeah.
he was like, I was worried I was in charge and or things were feeling a little chaotic. And
Yeah.
you could see he just was like, needed a little structure there, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that we kind of anthropomorphize dogs a little bit, like even as dog professionals, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
we tend to want them to have all the freedom and be able to enjoy, all of the house. And I think you're right, like creating those boundaries and that guidance throughout something like that is huge for they don't have to manage it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we see that a lot, like especially space guarding, like on the couch or whatever. Like they may go to the couch because they're really, really tired. And then
Mm-hmm.
we've got a human moving them to go sit in their spot. And then maybe like
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes later, the next human comes and moves them. um, so yeah, creating those spots around the house too of like, this is your area. I'm not gonna bother you.
Mm-hmm.
Go rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember the trainer said, sometimes Mosey would be shut in his cage, but when it was open, he did view it as a safe place to go and he would go there. And I remember she said, make sure the kids aren't allowed to go in there. Like they
Yes.
can't bring him out, they can't throw things there at him. Like he knows that's a place he can go, that like all the chaos of preschoolers
Yeah.
in this house and friends over and everything, nothing's going to bother him there. So I think he did really breathe a sigh of relief, and it's good to remember that. As I so appreciate this for both the listeners and myself heading into a world with a new puppy here. Um,
Excited for you.
learning some things I can do and think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for you and Friendly for sure.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Me too. And thank you so much for having this conversation. This was super interesting and really, really helpful.
Of course. Yeah, anytime. I'm happy to ramble about dogs.
Awesome. It was really great. And I'll put some of those links that you mentioned up in the episode notes. And thank you again for joining us. It was really fun.
Of course. Yeah, I had fun. Thank you.
Dog and butterfly, yeah, up in the air they like to fly. The dog and butterfly, below she had to try. She rolled back down to the warm soft ground, laughing, she don't know why, but she had to try. She had to try.
It was wonderful talking with Amber Zawrotny. We'll link to her info at the Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland Meet the Trainers page. And we'll also share some of the resources she talked about, including lists about how to socialize puppies and more. Now let's revisit Pippin's class and talk to a family member about what it's like raising a puppy. This is the sound of a puppy class. Heard snorting over here. I'm like, I know that sound.
Yeah. Right, like that one's mine. You know, that one's mine.
Hi. Hello, do you want a toy? Oh my goodness. Hello, puppy. You kids.
So we can certainly, figure out a way, but if you come back.
We just finished puppy class, our first, not really class, more of a puppy social time. It was great. Our little puppy just jumped right in there and had a blast playing tug of war and leaping up and over other puppies. And it was very cute because the first half hour was just this chaos of puppy sounds and play sounds and barks and yips. And then about halfway through it started to get really quiet, and they'd all take like little breaks where they'd pant or go get water and then go back into the fray. He really learned some social stuff about meeting other people and playing with other dogs in like a safe, age-appropriate setting. So that was great. We had a great time. He's gonna sleep well today.
But the party was nice, the party was pumping. And everybody having a ball. Until the fellas started name calling. And the girls respond to the call. I hear a poor one shout out, who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out?
I'm here with Kyle, and we're going to chat a little bit about what it's like having a puppy. Kyle, what are some highlights about Pippin and raising a puppy?
Hi, and thanks for having me on, first of all.
Thank you.
Yeah, highlights of a puppy. Well, puppies are so adorable. It's I actually did not want another puppy. When you brought that puppy home, I was not happy. Do you remember I got really upset when I walked
I
in and the
do
puppy was there?
remember. Yes, I do
And
remember.
then
I had tried to reach you, but I couldn't reach you, so it was kind of a surprise foster situation.
yes. But it was funny because I was like really mad that you brought the puppy home, because as soon as you foster it's an adoption as soon as a puppy gets in the house.
At least for
But
us.
for us, yeah. But by like the next day I was saying we had to keep him, right?
Yes, and you kept
So
laughing and smiling when he was
yeah,
around.
they're really, I mean, puppies are really cute and adorable. They're like little babies, puppy babies, but they're very cute. So that's a
Yes,
positive. It's like nice to it's like starting a relationship with a creature that will be in your house for, years and years and years, and that's kind of cool and
yeah,
kind of special.
yeah. And Pippin really adores you.
Hmm. I think he likes
Um,
you better.
I don't know. What's something that's challenging or like
Mm.
frustrating or hard about having a puppy around?
Um, I think for me, I like having a clean house, and I kind of I get stressed by adult animals making the house messy with hair and chewing things and all that stuff. But puppies add that whole layer of, not being potty trained.
Right.
And that's stressful because they're like peeing and pooping in different places, and you've got to be, monitoring them for that and teaching them how to, that it's better to go outside. So that's like probably the main thing for me. And then, they just need to be watched and monitored because they don't know. There's a lot of things that they don't know that they could get hurt doing or whatever it is. So it's kind of exhausting. It's not as exhausting as raising kids, human kids, like when they're infants,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's some like shade of that because you have to kind of constantly be paying attention to them and monitoring
Right.
them and making sure they don't hurt themselves and that they go out to pee and all the different things.
Baby proofing the space. I do
Hmm.
feel it's a little bit like we have a part-time job, like
Hmm.
that's so adorable and gives cuddles and snuggles and is cute, but also is like a lot of work and a
Yeah.
little messy.
And now he's in the equivalent of the terrible twos or the threes because when we first got him, he kind of just snuggled on the couch and you'd have to take him out to
Hmm.
pee and you'd have
Napped.
to like
Yeah.
deal with that sort of thing. But now he's mobile and he knows it. And so he's just, and he's got a lot of energy. So he's running all over the place. You can't necessarily keep your eye on him. And then every time you let him out of your sight and you find him, he's doing something he shouldn't be doing, like eating stuff that he shouldn't be eating, or
Right.
so that's even harder. And then if you try and constrain him, like put him in a smaller room with you, he gets unhappy and he wants to wander around. So it's kind of, I think it's more challenging right now to monitor him than it was when he was a newborn.
Yeah, it's like we've gone from the infant stage to the toddler and
Yeah.
preschooler stage. And I know, I was talking with one of the trainer and behavior people at the shelter, and they were mentioning, I mean, I hear also as a vet, adolescence in a dog can be 2 or even 4 years, depending on
Mhm.
breed, which is kind of intense, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
you're working with them to help them learn and socialize and figure out
Yeah.
how to live in a house. It's a lot for them to learn. But yes, he's definitely in a wilder stage, and he discovered his what I call his big boy bark. He seems very
Hmm.
proud, very proud.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, wow, that's a deep voice coming out of a little guy. So,
He
um,
also, if he hears any bark from any place in his hearing, whether it's like a
yeah,
dog like 2 blocks over, he starts barking. Like
yeah,
he's like he relies on other dogs barking to determine whether he should bark.
yeah. Do you have any, not as an expert, but as an owner who's done this a couple times, do you have any advice, lessons learned, anything like that to share?
I don't know. I don't think so. You're kind of the guru. I just do what you tell me. So maybe the advice to your listeners is to do whatever Susan says.
Oh, like I like the sound of this. So we could like expand this. No, just kidding. But yeah, thank you for talking with us about Pippin. Is there anything I didn't ask that you wanted to share about puppies or Pippin?
Oh, so in the advice, I have, that was kind of a little bit of a joke. I mean, it's kind of true too.
Okay.
But one thing that you taught me about raising puppies that I probably didn't know that I think is interesting, is sort of like training them to do stuff that you want is much more effective if you just do positive reinforcement. So rewarding the good behavior and then ignoring the bad behavior and then just
Hmm.
rewarding it when they do it right, as opposed
Hmm.
to, scolding them or whatever you might do, like on the punishment side for bad behavior, which I think is kind of, I mean, where I grew up, I think everyone had a little bit more of a traditional view on child rearing and probably animal rearing. And I remember our
Hmm.
puppy when I was a kid, and I don't think we were quite that way with that.
Hmm.
And you kind of, so I think my expectations when we started to have puppies were a little different, but I followed your lead and I think it's worked out really well. Like our prior two dogs both were turned out to be like, very well behaved and really good dogs. And I think Pippin is headed in that direction too.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And, I've been reading some of the research lately, and I think the research also kind of bears this out that there, if puppies are raised with a lot of positive reinforcement and maybe redirection, but not punishment, that those puppies grow into more confident, comfortable dogs with less behavior issues. Because I do think it's changed a lot since I was growing up as well, the thinking in kind of what's the best way. And I know there can be trends, but I think this has also got research behind it, that this is a really good way to raise puppies. And we are talking more with Amber about that in this episode. So thanks for bringing that up. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today, Kyle, and thanks for being part of Project Pippin with me.
Yep. Happy to be part of Project Pippin and happy to be on the show again.
It doesn't matter if you love him or capital H-I-M. Just put your paws up, 'cause you were born this way, baby. My mama told me when I was young, we're all born superstars. She rolled my hair, put my lipstick on, in a glass of her boudoir. There's nothing wrong with loving who you are, she said, 'cause he made you perfect, babe. So hold your head up, girl, and you'll go far.
Before we turn to the literature about puppies and the link with behavior issues in older dogs, I want to give a shout out that while we're focusing on rearing puppies and training puppies in this episode, there are so many adult dogs and mature dogs that need good homes. Many of these dogs have actually been relinquished because of housing challenges or changes or unexpected medical problems in their families. And there's so many, ranging from young adults that are playful and active and want to go on a hike, to older dogs that just want to snuggle and relax by the fire. And so a shout out to those who are interested and open to giving an animal a second forever home as a mature or adult dog. Now let's look at two articles from the science literature about links between the environment and training of puppies and the adult behavior of the dog. The first article is by Angela Gonzalez Martinez et al. This is from 2019, the Journal of Veterinary Behavior, called Association Between Puppy Classes and Adulthood Behavior of the Dog. This study followed 80 dogs and then did owner surveys. Just over half of these dogs did not attend puppy classes, and just under half did attend puppy classes, and they followed how they did later as adults. And the results, quote, indicated that both puppies and juveniles that have attended classes have more favorable scores for family dog aggression, trainability, non-social fear, and touch sensitivity. The study showed that attending puppy class may be important for social exposure with other puppies and people, which could have an association with the dog's long-term behavior. So this article looked at and showed links between going to puppy classes and having positive outcomes later in life as a dog. Here's a little internet song in honor of my niece, Mary Michael, who sang her heart out singing this song this winter in Colorado.
That's just my baby dog. 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 That's just my baby dog.
The second study is called Impacts of Puppy Early Life Experiences, Puppy Purchasing Practices, and Owner Characteristics on Owner-Reported Problem Behaviors in a UK Pandemic Puppies cohort at 21 months of age. and this is by the author Brand et al. In the journal Animals 2024. When I found this article and read this article, I actually shared it with a lot of the people I work with in the shelter because it seemed so important and so relevant to a lot of the things that we're seeing right now and that Amber addressed in the interview. The article talks about how problem behaviors are a leading cause of relinquishment or giving up and or euthanizing young dogs, and that previous research has shown the links between how puppies are raised and trained, how they're purchased and treated when they're young, and risk factors for later behavior problems. The puppies acquired during the quarantine phase of the COVID-19 pandemic are nicknamed Pandemic Puppies, and they're very at risk for these problems because a lot of the risk factors, like not being socialized, not being able to attend classes, or including certain kinds of inexperienced or negative training methods, were at play with many of these pandemic dogs. In fact, the article found in studying 1,000 dogs when they were puppies and then later as adults, that over 80% of dogs faced negative punishment or physical punishment in these dogs, and that is higher than would be typical. They also had less experienced owners and less access to puppy classes or training. In fact, they found that nearly all owners, over 96%, said that their dog exhibited at least one behavior problem.
Stop right! Out my leg! Stop right!
A third of the dogs were reported to have separation-related problems. If you think about it, these dogs weren't very socialized or trained, but were also used to being at home constantly with their owners. So when their owners started leaving to go to work, this was very stressful or different for these dogs.
Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night and I noticed my girl wasn't by my side. Could've sworn I was dreaming, for her I was fiending, so I had to take a little ride. Backtracking on these few years, trying to figure out what I do to make it go bad. Cause ever since my girl left me, my whole life came crashing and I'm so lonely, Mr. Lonely. I have nobody to call my own girl. So lonely.
In addition, the authors found that physical punishment and other negative techniques directly were connected to behavior problems later in life. In a little sort of silver lining or glimmer of hope from these dogs, anyone who attended puppy classes online, these puppies were actually had protection against these risk factors. So even though it was hard to find physical socialization opportunities for puppies, even the online classes did help. The authors conclude that this is a very vulnerable group of dogs and that it's really important to focus on owner education and humane training techniques to improve both the dog's lives and emotional health, as well as to prevent future relinquishment or giving up of these dogs. I think this article is really powerful. The statistics in it really capture a lot of what Amber was saying and a lot of what we're seeing right now in the shelter setting. A lot of these dogs are still relatively young and I think could really benefit from working with a veterinarian and working with a trainer or attending classes, even though they're no longer puppies. As Amber pointed out, sometimes people have things unexpected happen in their lives. So it's good to socialize dogs and get them out and comfortable in different settings, even if you don't anticipate that they'll ever need to be more flexible. It's a good thing to do for your dog. I'll link to that study because I think it's really fascinating and the full study is available online.
That's the reason why sometimes I'm feeling down. It's no wonder why sometimes I'm feeling under. Gotta keep my faith alive till love is found. Now ask yourself, where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? Sing with me, y'all. One word.
all we got. One world. And something's wrong with it. Something's wrong with it. Something's wrong with the world. Yeah, we only got one world. That's all we got. One world.
I'm going to read a poem called My Puppy is a Handful by Ann Davies. And in that last article that we highlighted, actually a number of the people talked about how raising a puppy was a lot more work and took a lot more time than they anticipated. And that is really a good thing to remember when considering adopting a puppy. I love this poem for a number of reasons, including how it highlights how much work it is to raise a puppy. I do want to say if we could just mentally sub out the word training for discipline in this poem, I think it would be more in line with the philosophy and messages in this episode. So I'll read this poem, but in one of the later lines when it says exercise, discipline, and rest, just try and think exercise, training, and rest would be more the message of this episode. My Puppy is a Handful by Ann Davies. My puppy is a handful, so full of energy, she jumps around to greet us and wags her tail with glee. She digs when in the garden, getting muddy from her head to toes. Whatever goes on in her mind, heaven only knows. She bolts her food so quickly and barely chews at all. She saves her chewing for the rug, our shoes, and the kitchen wall. Everyone tells me she will improve, and I want to believe what they say, so I'm hoping our dear little puppy will become docile one day. We want to create a harmonious home, so we'll try exercise, discipline, and rest, and trust that she will calm down, for we can only do our best. Remembering the saying, let sleeping dogs lie, now I have my own puppy, I can understand why. I definitely enjoy the puppy nap and would never wake a napping puppy. It's actually like a little position of honor to be resting and have a little napping puppy on you. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode about training and rearing of puppies. I hope it was as interesting and informative for you as it was for me. I'll share some of the links that Amber shared, as well as the link to that Pandemic Puppies article in the episode notes. And definitely check out the Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland or shelters and trainers near you that have just a wealth of different resources to offer to dogs of all ages, whether puppy or beyond. On a different subject from puppies, I wanted to mention that April is going to be the 1-year anniversary of the Biologica podcast. I'm so honored and I've learned so much to be doing it, and I really appreciate all the listeners out there. I love when I hear from you and getting to talk about the episodes. I mentioned earlier this spring that I am going to be taking a pause over the summer. We'll move to having 9 months of episodes and then a 3-month break in the summertime where I can prep and learn new things and find new wonderful interviews for the next season. So just a preview of that we'll be having our final episode for the year coming up pretty soon. I'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, and in the meantime, keep discovering.
We